The Summer Games Minute, brought to you by Mass Mutual. For most professional athletes, versatility means they can play a few different positions in a single sport. For Babe Dietrichson-Zaharias, versatility means dominance across the entire spectrum of sport. In the 1932 Summer Games in Los Angeles, Zaharias won gold in the 80-meter hurdles and the javelin throw, plus she got a silver in the high jump. Running, throwing, jumping wasn't enough for Babe, so she became a competitive billiards player, then jumped into professional golf, winning 10 major championships, all the while making a few pitching appearances in Major League Baseball spring training games. Mass Mutual understands the nuances in how women want and need to manage their finances. With quality product solutions and guidance, a Mass Mutual financial professional can help you plan for both short-term and long-term money goals. Learn more and get started at massmutual.com.
As you've probably heard by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code The Athletic. Make your first deposit of at least $10. Place your first bet on any game and claim your voucher for a 1-year subscription to The Athletic. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
The Athletic.
Cassidy calamity as crash curtails championship chase. Wingless Wehrlein wastes opportunity to wade in. Thrill spills and bellyaches as Portland produces peak peloton racing. And hat-trick hero da Costa shows Portugal how to score. All this and more coming up in the Race Formula E podcast from Portland. Hello, I'm Andrew Vanderberg, and joining me today from the zombie apocalypse of Portland is our Formula E correspondent, Sam Smith. Sam, how many white label 12 inches did you need to get through the weekend this time?
It wasn't as Shaun of the Dead as it was last year. I mean, yeah, in all seriousness, they have cleaned up
have they?
Things
there.
Because
I'd read that they were trying to do it. As it works.
Yeah, it was much better, and I think, from a sort of social progress point of view, a lot's been done there, which is good to see. And people have been.
Think it was an election year or something.
Well, yes, as we speak the day before we go to the polls, but let's not try and get political. I think a nice happy.
You know what to do, people.
I think let's hope they do. So yeah, it was. I quite enjoy Portland. It's a refreshing change. Parkland track, very atypical of Formula E, but it's a nice refreshing change. It's kind of quaint in a way, isn't it? It's a very.
I really liked it. I thought it was great. You say, old school.
Yeah, and it offers a very different kind of racing, which we're going to get into. But it's impressive. Yeah, went to the last corner again and free practice, and I mean, what a corner that is! I think there's actually a good suggestion that could be the best corner in Formula E. That I just think that
it was
that
good
whole
job that
section
they
is
allowed
amazing.
it to survive, because there was a time when that wasn't going to be how it was profiled, right?
That's right. They were going to put a chicane in just afterwards. I mean, I'm not sure it would have changed much on the entry, but I mean, seeing the drivers, wrestling with little twitches and movements on there and riding the curbs, I think there was at least a dozen incidents where drivers got it wrong and sort of skittled over the grass on the exit. Sasha Fenestras put it in the wall. Obviously, Cassidy will come on to in the race, but there were many others during free practice as they sort of got their range. And just a really nice place to watch these aces try and control these really quick cars on a nice tight corner in a really challenging circuit.
So fittingly, on the week when the Tour de France burst into life, I actually did a bit of Imola. I don't know if you saw that while you were away. It's quite cool.
I did. Yeah, I saw them sort of barreling down to Tamburello and Acqua Minerale. Very surreal. But they did it at Fuji, didn't they? A couple of years ago in the Olympics, they had a stage. Cycling had a stage at Fuji. So it's kind of no-brainer, really, isn't it, to use racetracks for cycling as well. Yeah.
So we mentioned in the intro there that this was probably peloton racing to the next degree, as we were expecting, right? But as a consequence of it, we have now got a championship fight that I didn't think we were going to have. Yeah,
extraordinary. And quite amusing, the fact that Formula E's brand and marketing and comms masters were briefing the drivers last weekend or before last weekend not to use the term peloton. It's the old hat now, apparently. So you've got to use... There was some kind of ridiculous branding bollocks phrase that they had to use, but obviously nobody did. Completely wide open, isn't it? I mean, the Formula E has a habit of bringing these situations upon itself, but who foresaw the title leader coming away with nothing at a weekend? It's a sort of double down on a nightmare. One completely his fault, the other really not. But it's brought Wehrlein and Evans particularly into the title hunt, and and now we've got an all new outsider with Antonio Felix da Costa. So nobody saw that coming. To win 4 races from 5 is unprecedented in Formula E. I mean, even in his title season, da Costa didn't get that level of concentration of victories. And Porsche have won 6 races now in this campaign, which is more than any other since season 3, when Sebastian Buemi went on that streak and won 6 races for Renault Edam. So, fair play to Porsche and particularly da Costa for some just superb performances recently.
Right, so let's crack into that. This season, pretty much, I would say Cassidy has been almost faultless in the way that the racing works out. There's going to be a front wing come off here or there. There's going to be a clash of wheels, but to spin off from a relatively comfortable lead of his own making, I just did not see that coming. What happened?
No, nobody saw it coming. I mean, he'd driven such a great race. He and Jaguar just executed a brilliant race up until that final lap. He was just about to start his final lap, wasn't he? And looked a dead cert. He'd come through, regular Cassidy thing. He'd kind of gone against a lot of others' strategy of been at the front all the time. He came through, got himself positioned, looked to be in control, and then, I mean, he just seemed to go a little bit wide into that corner. So I think he said about 3 or 4 seconds prior to that, I think on the back straight, Jaguar had radioed through and said that irrespective of Evans's penalty and any sort of orchestration that he could do to help Mitch in his position, that they would hold station. And I don't know, I don't think that really contributed to the incident, but that would have been in his consciousness as he went into that corner, I'm sure. But he just made a mistake. He's just like you say, an unfathomable mistake. He's kind of Senna 88 Monaco moment. I mean, it wasn't, it's not as if he had a massive lead. He was under huge pressure. So, there were some extenuating factors, but to do that...
He wasn't under direct pressure, It wasn't as if there was someone underneath him making a move or whatever. It was just... Round a bit wide. Obviously, there isn't a massive amount of grip offline here, as we know. And there you go.
It was, he didn't. There was no hiding place, and he knew it. And he, I spoke to him just after the incident. He was in contemplative mood. I mean, he wasn't completely down. I think at that stage he realised that, he'd got away with it to some extent in terms of damage limitation, with Mitch finishing in 8th and Wehrlein just getting a point in 10th. But as he says here, there were interesting descriptions, very interesting descriptions as to how he was feeling at this stage, and sort of the rationale of how that played out and what it meant to him at the time. You just dropped a bit of oversteer on there, or was there other circumstances that contributed to that?
A few chain of events, I guess, but at the end of the day, I made a really, really big error that I'll regret for Hamza.
And was there, did you get any feeling that, were you slightly offline going in? It was hard to see on the TV, but so is the marbles there, or was it just a bit of curve?
I was offline and I was deep. It's just a big error.
Yeah. And before that, I think, did Phil give you the sort of locked in terms of the team positions? I think Mitch got something from Joseph about it. That there's no factor that was part of what happened.
I just did about 3 seconds before that, 2 seconds before that break in.
And tell us about the early part of the race, because you made some great progress. It was looked like a typical cast surge to the front, and you were looking good.
25 the best laps I've done in Formula E. Managed to be super efficient. Car was really good. Was really happy with the strategy, with the communication, where I was placing the car. So I'm going to look at that and take that to tomorrow. Today I was obviously kind of one corner and one lap from winning the race. At least tomorrow's one lap shorter, so I probably only have to work on one corner.
And you actually, when it comes down to it, damage limitation wise, it could have been a lot worse. Pascal gets a point, Mitch gets 4. Title wise, points wise, it's not a major dent or anything in what you came in with.
Look, percentage wise, of the lead now, with 3 races left, I'm in a better position than I was going into that race. However, I believe winning that race would have locked in the title today. So, I'm not hiding away from the fact that today's a huge loss, but I'm also fully aware that I've got a great opportunity ahead of me.
Yeah, interesting to get Nick's take on that. If you had those additional 25 points, never mind what happened in the next race, he would look in a practically unassailable lead going into the final 2 races in London. But as it is, he's got Mitch and Pascal breathing down his neck.
Yeah, he was on the way to the title. As he said, the previous 25 laps were some of the most perfect that he and the team had done. He was in position. It was all, the headlines were ready to be written, weren't they? He could play the percentage game in the second race had he got those 25 points, but it wasn't to be. It was just a remarkable twist. It was a proper sort of rub your eyes moment. I can't remember. I remember Cassidy spinning in his first season, didn't he, at Rome? He was on pole, and then the third corner, he dropped it at the third corner. But I think there were some factors to play with the braking on that. But every driver at this level can make errors and can make mistakes, and we see it all season. And look, he made an error in Sao Paulo, didn't he, and got clattered and did his wing. Misano was a little bit messy, but I think each driver has 2 or 3 incidents a year in this whole maelstrom of the peloton and how they go racing here. So it's kind of a manifestation of the type of racing, but like you say, it stuck out because it really wasn't that. On this case, he was out front. So I think when it happens like that, it just becomes starker as you look at it. And he had nobody to blame but himself, and neither did he blame anyone else. You just got to bury that and get on with it. But you're right, it just does open the door more to Wehrlein and Evans. But at the same time, I think Cassidy will, the takeaway he'll get from the weekend was, God, it could have been a lot worse. He could have been going
so much worse.
Yeah, he could have been going to London actually in second or third place in the title stakes. And I think psychologically that would have been very damaging to him. He does like a fight. He is good under pressure. And I think looking ahead to London with that 12 points, he'll be thinking about last season when he went there as the underdog, and now he's in a better position. He is the Jake Dennis of last year. Yeah, he's in the same position or similar position as Jake Dennis was last year, and he is the favourite. So he can't. It's not one of those where you can play the percentage game. He still will go out to win it. But the fascinating thing for me is how now Jaguar manage things. They want that team's title. They covet that. Especially, and I think they have got so many calculations and potential choreographed plans that
is there a danger they might overthink it?
Yeah, I think there is. I think there absolutely is. I think generally they've got it right this year, but it is so easy. It is so easy to misconstrue, to get a communication error in there. I mean, communication is going to be key.
We saw Vision last year, didn't we?
Well, we did, exactly. Yeah, they really messed it up last year. And, Cassidy was a little bit culpable last year, in my sense, from the view of he should have been completely selfish in what he did. And I don't know if he wants to do that this time. Does he go to London now thinking, right, well, I can't do what I did last year and really overcompensate in terms of helping the team with the team's title and, have one eye on Mitch? I think, haven't you got to sort of just think, well, yeah, I'm going to have to go for it. I'm really going to have to go for it. And
surely the best thing he can do for the team's title is to go out and win the race, right?
Well, that's it. I mean, it's going to be, if they are at the front, and they should be, because they won there last year with Evans, and they'll be fine on qualifying. It's going to all be about qualifying. And if they are at the front, then it's going to be a case of whoever gets into the lead and then achieves the, executes the attack modes correctly. It's who is then going to be in the box seat, and then, how are you going to challenge your teammate, and how are you going to do it? Because Evans, if he is behind Cassidy, will have to make a move, whereby if Cassidy is behind Evans, if they are at the front of the field, a 7-point discrepancy, he'd still go into the lead on the Sunday with a lead. So there's all kinds of permutations, but you're right. I think the key is just to completely focus on winning that race. And Cassidy and Evans each won a race at London last year, so it's almost perfectly poised. It's like perfectly positioned, and we've not even gone on to talk about the Porsches yet, have we? And we've not even gone to talk about
we've
Roland.
got plenty of time, don't you worry.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it is the best. It was the best solution, or the best situation in drama terms for the championship you could have wished for last weekend. And as neutrals, which we all are here on this side, it is just, tantalizingly set up with so many stories within it that are woven into it. So many sub-stories, how Jaguar were going to manage it. They're looking for their first title. Porsche are looking for their first title. Wehrlein is there. He's a big threat. He's excellent. He's been excellent at qualifying this season. And London is just going to be, it's a unique track. It is the anti-Portland. Yes, there is still some energy management in the race, but it's all about qualifying. So, and it's not easy to overtake. So it's, it can't not be anything other than dramatic there in a few weeks' time.
So we haven't really discussed the race 2 incident. One of many. I mean, countless incidents. I was slightly surprised that the damage was enough to end this race on the spot, because we'd seen other drivers, most notably Wehrlein, continue without a front wing and what looked like considerable damage. So what was it that happened to Nick's car that took him out?
Yeah, there was actually the cameras missed it initially, and then on the replay you saw I think it was it Jake Dennis? Dennis went deep into the chicane, or was it Mortara? I have to check. Mortara and Dennis were close by. One of them went into the chicane, went deep, sort of had to then get back to the right to get a line to go through the left-hander. Of course, that compromised everyone behind them. So it was one of those cases where it was just like a big accordion effect. Everybody stopped and everyone just crunched into each other. And Cassidy hit the back of... Evans hit the back of Cassidy, damaged his rear crash structure and some of the sort of diffuser elements at the back of the car, and that meant that he had to stop. He got a damaged tyre as well, had to stop, as did a number of drivers, including Dennis and De Vries. So that put them on the back foot considerably. There was then the safety car, which was deployed, which helped them, but there was by that time, even though Cassidy was rich on energy, the race became locked in and flat out, and there was no way to use that energy in a race that became a blast to the flag. So he was out the points, where his teammate Mitch survived that, had a wobbly wing, had to manage that a little bit from the contact with the back of Cassidy's car, and eventually got third place, which put him right onto within 12 points of Cassidy in the title. So yeah, it was just unfortunate for Cassidy. Wasn't particularly.
I hadn't noticed he had that tyre damage, but that explains it.
Well, yeah, he had damage to the car. I think he certainly had a cut tyre. He was told to pit. They were worried as well about the rear of the car. I saw a picture of the damage to the rear crash structure and the under tray, and it was considerable. So he was crocked to some extent as well.
So, like you say, Evans managed to limp on with one of the many walking wounded there. But again, it could have been a much bigger weekend for him, because obviously first across the line in race one, but had that penalty. So explain exactly what had happened, and I'm guessing that he wasn't massively pleased with the outcome of that.
Oof, yeah, that's an understatement. Big understatement. So it was Jake Hughes had taken his attack mode and had fed back into the line, and Mitch Evans was on his right as they were in this group pack racing situation of saving energy and managing their usable energy for the race. So Jake sort of fed back in. So there's a kind of a lane discipline element when that happens. And Hughes sort of moved across, but Evans was on his right. Jake Hughes didn't know that Evans was there. He was in a blind spot, couldn't see it. And it was, they were sort of more or less level. I mean, Mitch was with his, with Hughes's rear wheels as they sort of went to this kink after the turn where they take their attack mode. And Evans very, very lightly brushed Jake Hughes's right rear Hancock and punctured through the contact. I mean, this was minimal contact. Evans was compromised by not really having anywhere to go. He did actually go onto the curb to look like he was trying to avoid any kind of contact, but Hughes clearly hadn't seen him, and the contact was made. Evans was given a 5-second penalty for this contact after it was investigated and reviewed by the stewards. Now, I think seeing it from that angle, it looked incredibly harsh on Evans, because really he had nowhere to go. I mean, his options were pull fully onto the grass beyond the curb and lose momentum and obviously, compromise his race significantly, or just try and sort of sit it out. He could have completely lifted off, but as Mitch told me afterwards, that would have been a safety situation because he had cars right up his rear as well.
Well, also, that's not the etiquette for attack mode, though, is it? You're not supposed to make the person who's on the conventional line back off in order for you to blend back in.
No, but it's ultimately this is a consequence of just how close they're racing and how how that whole scenario unfolds of coming back into play after an attack mode. This wasn't an overt move over from Jake Hughes. He was just blending back in. It was, I mean, we've talked about this before. It's, is there anything such as a racing incident these days?
Well, to me, this sounds like the almost classic definition of it. But what do I know? Quite. But there doesn't appear to be something. I think there's two things here. One is that the drivers were, as I understand it, speaking to Scott Elkins at the drivers' briefing, and they were putting pressure on after recent incidents or policing
of multiple incidents during races, these high energy, sensitive energy races, to be policed more effectively and for more action to be taken.
Okay, so they got what they asked for.
Well, there is an argument to say that. But what I would say is that common sense should prevail here. I mean, one thing we have to say about the stewards is, and James Barclay said the same thing, they do have an extraordinarily difficult job.
Well, we've talked about this before. I mean,
we have.
They need about 100 of them these days.
Well, we do, but that, they would have had that pretty quickly, that onboard, specifically the onboard of Mitch Evans. So it puts you in the position of the driver. And that you got to ask yourself, what could Evans have done there? He could have backed right off, but as I said, he had people right up his arse, and you don't want to be backing off at that speed. They're pulling 120, 130 miles an hour through that stretch. You don't want to be doing that, otherwise you're risking vaulting accidents off the back of tyres. I think common sense should have prevailed here. I personally didn't see that as a penalty. The stewards have a driver advisor, and this has been a bone of contention throughout the last 2 seasons. Is the person responsible for advising the stewards is the driver's advisor. Previously, drivers have been used. I'll give you some examples. Paul Belmondo, Enrique Bernaldi, Pedro Lamy, all very fine professional drivers in their day.
Yeah, they've driven a load of electric racing cars, haven't they?
That is one criticism. The other is that they haven't driven anything really for 20 years. The one time that they did have somebody, let's say, relevant in terms of experience of Formula E was Alexander Sims in Tokyo, which seemed to be a good mood and a progressive one for the FIA. To get somebody like Alexander involved makes a whole lot of sense. And then I asked who the driver steward was in Portland. Any guesses?
Buddy Lazier.
Not far off. It was Johnny Unser.
Wow.
It was Johnny Unser.
Like I say, fine driver.
I looked at Johnny Unser's record. His last...
It's only got a good name anyway.
His last IndyCar race was in 2000. You would never say that he was a competitive IndyCar driver.
No.
He has no previous experience of Formula E. And when I asked what his preparation was, it was, he'd been briefed and he'd seen some videos of Formula E races in the past. When I put it to Mitch Evans, he hadn't heard of Johnny Unser, and many drivers wouldn't have heard of him. They wouldn't have met him. There would have been no prior discourse between them, or understanding, or Unser, or any of these drivers who are advisors coming into Formula E and really getting immersed in it and understanding the lift and coast, understanding how the drivers race, the etiquette of slipstreaming and pack racing. And I think this is a classic example of that kind of knowledge not being part of the whole situation here, and a decision being made in the nuances and all the bedlam of these races and the context of it, which just, to me, didn't make a whole lot of sense. And it didn't make a lot of sense to Jaguar or Mitch Evans, or in fact a lot of drivers that I also spoke to weren't involved in this incident. But as I said, the stewards appear to be looking at specifically the cause rather than the actual incident itself. So if Jake Hughes hadn't got a puncture, I'm pretty sure that Mitch Evans wouldn't have had a penalty for that. In fact, it was, I believe, insinuated at the stewards' meeting between Jaguar and the stewards that had the puncture not occurred, that he wouldn't have got the penalty, which, if is the case, it just isn't the way to officiate, I would say, in my opinion.
We love talking stats here at The Athletic. Here's one that's super simple to remember. Discover automatically doubles the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cashback Match. That means with Discover, you could turn $150 cash back to $300. That's right. You could put it towards some memorabilia you've had your eye on, or treat yourself to a premium sports network. You earn and Discover doubles. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
We'll get back to the pod in a moment, but first of all, let me tell you about Grammarly. Email, Google Docs, Slack, you write across multiple platforms and places during your workday, so delivering consistent, high-quality communication everywhere is key. Grammarly is an AI writing partner that helps you get work done faster with high-quality writing for better projects, proposals, presentations, and more. Best of all, Grammarly works where you work, so you can get more done no matter what tools you use. As a journalist and podcast host, I'm constantly writing and rewriting copy and drawing up scripts. It's part of the job, and Grammarly helps make it faster. It's got some really cool features like tone suggestions to help you strike the right balance between direct and friendly in work emails. Plus, Grammarly has a ton of other great features like advanced spelling, grammar, punctuation, and conciseness suggestions to ensure your writing is professional, mistake-free, and clear. Get AI writing support that works where you work. Sign up and download for free at grammarly.com/podcast. That's GRAMMARLY.com/podcast. Easier said, done.
So Evans denied a probable win, ends up with 8 points, decent podium in the second race, like you say, with despite the damage. All of this seemingly door wide open for Pascal Wehrlein to take full advantage. What happened to him?
Yeah, he had a poor Saturday, really. Never really got into contention at the front. He was compromised a fair bit by taking on board some grass from in his radiators, which affected his race. And
well, it is Portland.
It's it's the one place of the year we actually do see grass, isn't it? Really, although Misano, I suppose. But yeah, he was quite compromised by that. Never got into contention. I think his temperatures were up and his race was affected. So he ended up getting a point for 10th, which just didn't capitalise on.
I mean, that let Cassidy massively off the hook, didn't it? It did massive, hugely. And I think,
Wehrlein, he is in contention, but when these things occur, when the goal is open, he quite often doesn't convert. I think he's had
When was the last time he won a race?
Well, he's had a good season. He's won 2 races this season, but quite often he just doesn't seem to be able to capitalise on these situations when they occur, and it's maybe a little bit of bad luck. It certainly wasn't anything. I think he got shoved off. I can't remember. He had a contretemps with somebody. So look, you could be really harsh and say, should he be getting involved? But when you are in the midfield pack in these races, you haven't got any option. If you don't get your elbows out, you're slipping way back down the field, and you just become a nobody, and you're going to get 12th, 13th at best. Look, how crucial could that point be in this close title fight? It may be something that we think isn't too relevant, but every point is going to count this season, and he may well look back at it and think, well, I'm glad I got that point. But in the general scheme of things,
I think he would have rather have had another 10. I think another 10 would have made his situation made it much brighter.
Yeah, it was a bit of a messy one, and he certainly wasn't that happy about it. And obviously, Da Costa winning that race and eventually doing the double, there will be part of Wehrlein thinking, well, should Da Costa have been able to help him more? But Da Costa was out front. What's he going to do? He's not going to sort of hang back and gather up his teammate who's struggling with all manner of incidents and accidents. You got to keep your nose clean, which is what Da Costa did. And if his teammate was on his coattails, maybe the team would have actually made a call and allowed Wehrlein through to get more points. But the fact was that Wehrlein just wasn't there on the Saturday.
I mean, you say he's had a good season, but it's been up and down. He's never had a really consistent run of being up there in the same way that we've seen from Cassidy, and to a slightly lesser extent from Evans, and as we had done from someone that we'll speak about later, Ollie Rowland. Do you think that he's got a double podium weekend in him? Because basically that's what him and Evans are going to have to do, back-to-back podiums in London to win this, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's consistency-wise, qualifying has been good this season for Pascal. It's just that he hasn't... The best run of results he's got really were those races between Misano, where he got where he won the first race, and then he got a fifth. He got another fifth at Berlin, and then he got a fourth in the second Berlin race. Shanghai was the one which, was the feast and famine one, where he got completely wiped out, didn't he, by Sam Bird. He got a good second on the first day, and then got wiped out on the second by Sam Bird, which was a very similar incident to the Hughes and Evans one, by the way, and Bird got a different kind of penalty because he didn't finish the race. He got a 5-second grid penalty, and a 5-second grid penalty, by the way, at Portland was completely irrelevant. It didn't matter. You could have started it in Seattle and it wouldn't have made a difference. So going back to Wehrlein, I think he is, he's obviously a clear contender. He's dangerous. He's a threat. But for me, again, a bit like the two Jaguar drivers, it's, Da Costa at the moment is 33 points behind Cassidy as opposed to Wehrlein's 12. Do Porsche have a big decision to make despite the momentum that Da Costa has at the minute? Do they employ Da Costa as a shotgun rider to Wehrlein to try and maximise and disrupt the Jaguars?
I think they have to. I mean, he's probably got to turn that win streak into 5 in a row in order to convert that.
Yeah,
it would have been a different matter if that Misano win had stood. I mean, he'd be a handful of points off of Cassidy right now, because if you have to refactor in the scores, he'd probably be 3 points off or something. Different game, but he's a win in the second at the very least. I think he's going to need.
Well, this is the big fascination, because at the same time, the team's titles has closed up significantly too. It's now down to 33 points. Where people were talking about Jaguar completing their first title last weekend, pretty, a bit of a cakewalk. I mean, it just wasn't the case. Porsche slashed that lead down to 33, and they will be eyeing that very, very closely. So,
Da Costa's form there brings them right into contention. That 33 points could disappear in that first race.
Indeed, and Da Costa had a very good London last season. Should have got second place, got that penalty for the deflating tyre, and that went all the way to court, as did his Misano spring episode, which was resolved a few days before Portland. So, and it's an old argument now, but had Da Costa had those 25 points, he would be on 159 points. And would be, and actually it'd be recalculated, because obviously it would have changed the results, so others wouldn't have got the points. He would have been within 6 points, I think, of Cassidy going into London. And another great fact is, if the results from Portland are transposed to London, and obviously that's impossible. Well, it's not impossible, highly, highly unlikely. Da Costa would win the title by quite a margin. He'd win it by, I think, about 8 points. So if Da Costa wins, if it's repeated at Portland, in London is what happened in Portland, Da Costa is champion. I mean, he couldn't, could he? He couldn't, surely.
Well, I mean, winning 3 Formula E races in a row is highly unlikely. Winning 5 in a row is completely unprecedented, right? So we're into uncharted territory here, but he is in phenomenal form at the moment, so I'm not completely ruling it out.
I mean, if he did it, it would be, not only Formula, the greatest comeback or the most ridiculous set of circumstances in Formula E history. There's a case for it being the most ridiculous fantastical story in racing that I can remember, because Da Costa had, after 3 races of the 16, he had 0 points and was 58 points behind his own teammate.
Well, he was getting fired. He was basically getting fired in the morning.
And he had a guy at the back of the grid in one of the worst cars of the grid been said, come and drive Antonio's test and development car, will you? Because we need a second opinion. And, he was been ostracised from the team. And
admitted himself that he couldn't really understand why he was doing so badly.
Yeah, he was at rock bottom. Rock bottom. I spoke to him a little bit about his side of the garage and how they supported him, and his engineer, Marius Meyer Diedrich, who's a lovely guy, actually, and somebody who's very close to Antonio. His side of the garage completely believed in him and dug down and just completely shoveled their way out of that hole. And it is one of the great redemption stories of Formula E that I can remember, that Da Costa has turned this around. I remember we did the season preview back in, must have been, December or early January. And my tip for the title was Antonio Felix da Costa. And I was sort of laughing at myself after 3 races, thinking, well, what a ridiculous thing to say. And there is a case for saying, well, look, he's in one of the best cars, so he should be at the front of the field. He should be doing it. But the way that it's been done is completely extraordinary. 4 race wins from 5, and just that momentum and the feeling that Da Costa can, he can not only get on top of the qualifying, which he's done recently, but he can actually do what Nick Cassidy has been doing so famously and control these races in a very, very dominant way. But like I said, London's going to be very different. It's going to be all about qualifying. But with the confidence now that Da Costa has, I expect him to be, to be right there in qualifying form and be in the mix at the front of the field with both Wehrlein and the 2 Jaguar drivers. So, yeah, just going back to what I said, it's just an absolutely, whets your appetite massively for what's going to go on at XL in a few weeks.
Yeah, it would be a phenomenal story, and I think one that most neutral observers of the series would like to see. But what does the man himself think about it, Sam?
Well, I had a good chat with him after the race, and as ever, he gives a great quote. And he was on cloud 9. And when a driver is in that sort of ebullient mood, they do go a bit deeper into how it was done and the sort of the whole ebullience of creating that atmosphere to get these results. And as Antonio says here, when you put it into the context of where he was and where he's come from this season, it's just a great story. So Da Costa gives a strong insight here into how it was done and what it means potentially for London.
I think I just understood this type of racing really well. I'm not the only one, and I have an efficient car which helps me to do it. But yeah, man, it's crazy, insane. And as I said earlier, these moments don't come very often. Sometimes a champion has 2 wins, 3 maximum, maybe 1. So this run of races is incredible, and I'll make sure to enjoy it and keep riding this wave, because we don't know how long it lasts. I've been on both ends of this peak of performance, on the good one and on the bad one, so I'll just make sure I enjoy it. And yeah.
How much more does it mean to you to do it after what happened early in the season, and just the way that your team's galvanised around you? Marius always kept his head straight.
Yeah.
All your performance guys were so on it, and you never lost the faith as well.
Yeah, it's funny with Marius and my engineering crew, especially Marius. The guy he's very emotional, but it's very hard to get it out of him. And when we were sucking there at the beginning of the year, he was brutally honest with me, which I enjoy. I really enjoy. It's never nice to hear, but it's the only way to get out of a difficult situation. And this I enjoy. I don't enjoy when people are brutally dishonest. So I really respect what he did for me and with me and my whole crew of the car, with Alex, my performance engineer as well. And I obviously haven't turned this around alone. They haven't lost belief, and that helps. That goes a long way.
Heading to London, you're 33 points behind Caps. Stranger things have happened. If it did, it would be truly insane. But let's forget about Mizano because it's done. But a double header. You saw this weekend. Funny things can happen.
Absolutely.
How are you going to be approaching it?
I don't know yet. It's all very fresh. I've probably landed in Portland this week thinking I'm just here to help Pascal. And honestly, I started today's race thinking I'm here to help Pascal, and I tried my best. But yeah, let me have a week and can speak to you after.
So away from the red hot glow of the title fight, there were 2 other drivers who actually did the majority of the scoring over the weekend, and it was a massive return to form for the Envision team, and Robin Freins in particular, with a brace of second places, meaning he came out the weekend with more points than anyone else, and in fact I think more than doubled the points he scored all season in one weekend. So what was the trigger point for bringing the Dutchman back into play, Sam?
Well, actually, if you look back to Shanghai, there were signs that things were getting better. They didn't get rewarded through the results for those efforts and for how they presented themselves in China, but there was a bit more of a confidence going into the weekend in Portland, and they won the thing last year with Cassidy. I think they were quite keen to also evidence that it wasn't all purely Nick's skill and foresight in winning that race last year, and Freins looked quick. Actually, both Freins and Buemi looked quick from the outset in free practice. Got a nice setup with the car, got themselves configured into the qualifying as well, which Robin was in the higher echelons of the duels on both days, and then more importantly during the race, Robin has often fallen foul this year of the midfield madness in Formula E, has been sort of shoved out the way.
It's fair to say that he is probably the least big fan of this style of racing, would you say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, there aren't many of them that are fans, but Robin is a kind of glass half empty kind of guy at the best of times, right? I mean, I kind of really like him for it. He's very honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's quite sort of languid, kind of laconic kind of character. But he just doesn't like racing this way. But he's kind of taken it, grasped it by the neck, and done what others have, notably Ollie Rowland and Jake Hughes have kind of done that this season. Got stuck in, got their elbows out, fought for their positions. And when he is in some, well, when I say clear air, what I mean is he's not in that midfield pack, he thrives, and he pulled off two great performances at the weekend and got, reaped the results with two second places. So the question really is this too little too late? I think ultimately
too late for what?
For his drive to stay in.
Oh, for his drive. I thought you were talking about some sort of title challenge there. It's like, yes, it's far too little and it's far too late.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be. You're going to get long odds on Robin. What is he? He's like, no, it's over. The title's over for you, Robin. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. There's a big question mark over Robin's position in that team for this season. It's not been a great season for lots of reasons. And look, apportioning blame is something that I think that they'll sort of they'll divvy out between them. Really, everybody's had partly to blame for the way that things have gone, and I think ultimately Robin certainly has been feeling not the physical side effects of what happened to him last season, but certainly in the context of getting pushed around and getting shunted and feeling that steering snap when he does get shunted off is certainly, and he's admitted it, has a bearing on his feelings with this type of racing. So you've got to kind of feel for him on that level. But at the end of the day, you got to go racing, and whatever the circumstances, you got to get in there, and that's what he did in Portland. And two great performances, and it brought Envision from 8th to I think 7th. So they leapfrogged Maserati. They do have a chance of nibbling away at McLaren. The maximum they can do is 6th, but even 6 is a very disappointing season for them. They should be in the top 4 at least.
I guess it's all about momentum, though, going into the following season, and if they ended the year with some more top 6 finishes in London, that's not too bad, is it? You're going into the following year looking like you can regain some of that ground where you were before. Yeah,
exactly. I think there'll be more of a light swung over their relationship with Jaguar after the season. I think they'll have to get together with Jaguar and understand what extra support or more data or just something to help them through for next season, and obviously getting immersed in the Gen 3 Evo development to some extent will be needed for Envision. As to the drivers, Robin Freins, I worry for his position there. I think there could be a change. I think there will be a change there. Sebastian Buemi is a little bit more complicated because I think that, and by the way, he was very unlucky on Sunday. Was Buemi he was looking really good. He was leading at one stage and in a good position, and then got a penalty for going under the minimum tyre pressure, got pinged for that. So Buemi, I think, has probably got some kind of situation deal with the team for next year, but of course there are all kind of clauses for performance and various other things that will have to be looked at. But I think there's possibly more of a chance that Buemi will stay at the team than Frines next season, but the chances of an entire clear out are still there as well. I think it can go either way and won't be resolved until probably around London time or just after. So we'll have to wait to see there what transpires with the Greens.
And the other guy who brought a bag full of points back was Jean-Eric Vergne, third in race 1, fifth in race 2 for a really decent amount. He's had a quiet, by Jeff standard, a quiet but solid campaign, hasn't he? Has he still got some ridiculous mathematical chance? Possibly.
Yeah, he
but
has.
It's not happening anyway.
Well, he has. Yeah, he's on. What's he on? 129. So he is. Actually, he's only. What is he? 30. No, 45 points behind Cassidy. Yeah, I mean, mathematically, yes. I mean, very similar season to last season in the sense that he occasionally been quick. He got an excellent pole position on Sunday. Really fine lap, beating Da Costa, which was one of the real dramas of the weekend as well. It's just not quite there, that car. That DS isn't quite there. They've known that for some time. They've tried to maximise other areas, but I think a combination of a lot of transitionary changes in that team with Phil Charles arriving in March. And we've lost some well-known faces in that squad, and they've been replaced. Phil's building something there for the future. But from Vergne's point of view, I think he's had a really, really strong season. And
he's
actually,
put Van Dorn to bed, hasn't he? Absolutely.
Yes, he has. Yeah, Van Dorn has got 55 points, and Vergne this season has got 129 points. So, yeah, it's fairly conclusive in terms of the hierarchy of that team and what's been achieved. Vergne on Sunday was very unlucky, actually. He got really shafted by the safety car and his attack mode and his momentum in that race. He and the team weren't suitably rewarded for their performance on Sunday. It was a really strong weekend for DS Penske, and one which mirrored last season in a sense, because they got fined for a little bit of what's the word?
Espionage.
Espionage. That's a strong word, isn't it? Espionage, very strong word. I was going to say antics. Antics.
When you sent me the note, it was like, this is deja vu. Surely this is a message that's been held in the cloud and suddenly come through.
It was quite amusing, actually. They got fined €5,000 for a staff member taking notes on competitors' tyre choices from the lane. There's like a third lane on the back of the pits, and look, everybody does something to some extent. They employ photographers, or they have people just observing other teams and making mental notes or whatever they do. But this was a slam dunk, because the guy who was doing it, apparently quite a junior guy with the Penske organisation, had the wrong pass on. So he had, I think, an amber pass.
That's a fatal flaw in motorsport, though. If you're ever going to get caught, it's because you got the wrong pass on.
Yeah, it says on the back of the pass, doesn't it? Motorsport is dangerous, but not as dangerous as having the wrong pass on in the first place. So it was all very comedic, and they got fined. Some people took it very seriously, as the stewards did. But look, I mean, it does. These kind of games do happen. Yeah, I remember I was talking to somebody.
Shenanigans is the word, isn't it?
Shenanigans, antics. I mean, I remember somebody in Hong Kong telling me, pointing up to a hotel overlooking the track and saying, "Look closely at the 4th or the 5th floor or something." I looked, and there was these people sort of looking in with binoculars, and I went, "Who are they?" He said, "They were." I won't tell you the team, but it'd be a bit wrong for me to tell you the team. No, I can, because they've pissed off now for Formula E. It was BMW. BMW had these guys with like military-style binoculars in a little remote room in a hotel, looking at the opposition. I mean, Christ,
Brilliant. The lakes they go to for a minuscule advantage is fantastic.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It is unbelievable. Anyway, that happened, and there was a bit of deja vu, although very different to what happened with a device they had last year. But a bit of a side amusement for the weekend.
So one person who was utterly out of luck, who probably, and we were talking about this before we came on air, who probably would have come out of this weekend in a very strong position, Oliver Rowland, still mathematically in the title fight, but not really, but forced to miss the race through illness. What a gutting experience for him.
Yeah. Gutted at the time, gutted during, and whatever the next expansion of gutted is afterwards, when he saw all those above him scoring points that they don't usually score in terms of how many they brought home. I think there's a reason to state that Rowland could have got 25 points at the weekend, and if you take the form that he's had for the majority of this season, 25 points would have put him on 156. He'd have been within range of Cassidy to the tune of 10 points or 11 points. He's been scuppered by illness. So first and foremost, we wish Oliver all the best and hope he's back for London. I'm sure he will be. There was no detail about his illness, but presumably it's something that isn't conducive or wasn't conducive with flying. So he was out. Such a shame. But what could have been? I think there'll be questions in his head, but he's still, with 36 points behind Cassidy, got a mathematical chance. But I just believe that Cassidy, Evans and Wehrlein are, just to have that enough of a buffer with Da Costa as a rank outsider. Really, I think Oliver, although he's only 3 points behind Da Costa, it's going to be very difficult for him. And I think if he does come back from London, which I'm sure he will, he'll just be out to try and be a nuisance to those aiming for the title and see what happens.
So they dragged in a guy from Indy Next called Cow Collette to replace him at Nissan, and he did a pretty decent job, I think.
Did you just call him Cow? Cow Collette?
So how's it pronounced then? Chow?
Ko.
Ko.
Was
cow.
Ko.
As in chow. But no? Ko.
Ko. I just call him CC.
Sorry, Ko.
CC for short.
CC.
Ko Collette, he young Brazilian, has raced in Formula 3 before. He's doing the Indy Next series this year. He's third in the championship. He's had some good results. Done a couple of tests for Nissan. He's been a reserve and development driver this year, attended several races, and unlike Taylor Barnard, who did a similar super sub impression at Monaco early this year, he had a bit more notice this time. I think he knew on Thursday night or Friday morning that he was going to be there, had the full range of shakedown and free practice. But having said that, what he didn't have was any simulator time. He didn't know the track. He'd not been in the sim. So he was going in very, very cold to this, but did a very fine job. He didn't make any massive mistakes from what I saw in free practice. He qualified extremely competently. He actually outqualified his teammate Sasha Fenestraz, which was interesting. I mean, did a super job from that point of view. Didn't get a point, but he was on the cusp of the points and could have got a point. He got 2 race finishes. Yes, he did have some incidents and got involved in some argy-bargy and had some damage to his car. But on the whole, I thought he did a very, very admirable job, very solid, and a good start to his what I'm sure will be a more Formula E for him in the future.
Speaking of Fenestraz, that's not a great way of inheriting a bit of team leadership, is it?
No, I think there was pressure anyway before Rowland wasn't coming this weekend. I think it was a big weekend for Sasha after a disappointing campaign, and then all the spotlights went on him, didn't they, for the fact that he was then the de facto team leader, if you want. And it started with an accident in free practice 2 on Saturday morning. He damaged the car, that compromised him, lost him track time. He qualified behind Collette, primarily for that reason, to be honest. So it was kind of self-inflicted. The race was actually going really well, and then he had some contact and damaged the car. He then, during the weekend, went on to get a penalty for contact with, I think it was Jake Hughes. Yes, it was Jake Hughes. Seemed to be sort of trying a bit too hard. Damaged the car, didn't get any points. And you have to look at that and think, well, if there were doubts in Tommaso Volpe's mind about the future with Sasha in the team, then they would have been amplified significantly at the weekend, unfortunately. So it's hard to see now, actually, when you look at the points from this season and the fact that Nissan have now slipped from third in the championship down to fifth. And
they should have been nailed on third.
Yes, they should. Yeah, I think they know that. Look, Fenestraz has had some bad luck. He should have got some big points in Nissan, got turfed off by Nato. Slam dunk turf off by his former teammate Nato. It's not all been his fault, but I think he himself, I know this, he's spoken at length about the fact that he's not had a great season and he has made too many mistakes and he's not been in the game. And it's a worry, because you look at it and you think, well, had he been able to contribute 60 or 70 points, then Nissan are at least third, if not, well, no, they're third. They would be an easy third, and they should be challenging DS Penske. As it is now, they were ahead of DS Penske, ahead of Portland, because of that no point score in Portland. They are now 27 points behind DS Penske, and that's a lot to make up in two races, even if you've got a fully fit Oliver Rowland. So Fenestraz, they will certainly this week and next week be taking a close look at that. I did speak to Tommaso Volpe about the situation, and he said that they weren't going to make a decision till the end of the season. A lot will play out with the Da Costa situation and whether or not he's staying with Porsche. We touched on this in the last podcast about the driver market, and I think that potentially the knock-on of that could be that there are drivers with experience that Nissan are looking at now to take them on to the next level. But at the same time, they may believe in Sasha. It was always going to be a 3-year project with him, and they may stick to that and just give him their undivided support and stick with him. But something has to change pretty quickly, because he really hasn't contributed massively to what has been a strong season otherwise. And at the end of the day, points count.
It was always a long shot going into the weekend, but it's now basically official. I think there's still a very vague mathematical chance that Jake Dennis might defend his championship, but it sort of went out with a bit of a whimper. P6 in race 1 and then just a single point for P10 in race 2. Not a brilliant weekend for Andretti in their home race.
No.
It's a long way from their actual home.
Yeah, one to forget really for Andretti. Just never really factored. They were quick on occasions. Jake was decent. Norman Nato was very quick on Saturday and was on the front row. I should have been on the front row. Had to take a penalty for a full course yellow infraction, his third of the season prior to that, so that dropped him down to 7th on the grid. I dug down a bit into what might have happened, but it seemed to be one of those weekends that they've had too many of this year, where they've not been far away, but they've just not been able to get the sort of consistency of feel of the car and then exploit it in these energy sensitive races, and through incidents or not been placed where they should be on the track, and overspending a bit and sort of not quite getting the strategy right, they fall away. So yeah, bitterly disappointing for them. It's been a sort of middling season. They've just got to now try and come back stronger for next season. They know they've got Jake Dennis in the car as a long-term signing, and then the question is, does Norman Nato stay with some of that continuity which they need, which I think I've opined on that they probably should for next season. Michael Andretti was there at the weekend. I had a chat with Michael on Friday, and he did say continuity is important, but at the same time that they are looking across the field too. So no decision made on that as yet, but certainly the next few weeks we'll know if that's an unchanged lineup or they're going to embrace somebody new into the team. It's a bit of a revolving seat, that, isn't it? Oliver Askew, Andre Lotterer, Norman Nato the last few years. But I mean, I think there are factions within that team that want to see Nato retained and some of that continuity continue. But there are
probably done just about enough. The high points are probably just about high enough to warrant another year, I would say.
It's kind of right on the bubble, isn't it? I mean, he's got 46 points. Dennis has got 122. So actually there is still a chasm there between them. Yeah. But Jake Dennis is the reigning champion and he's one of the top performers in the series. Could Andretti do better? Then you look at the drivers ahead of Norman in that field. The ones that stand out for me that score more points than him, or just about more points. Jake Hughes is on the market. Stoffel Van Dorn is on the market. Robin Freins, could he return to Andretti? Potentially. That's about it, really, for who's available. There's no obvious.
I mean, Van Dorn and Freins are probably upgrades, but no obvious one. One thing worth shouting out, I think a big positive weekend for Mahindra and the Mahindra powertrain. P4 for Mortara in race 1, and a really solid weekend's work for Nico Muller in the app car, P5 in the first race, P6 in the second. And that's really, I think that's doubled his points for the season. And he is in nosebleed territory in that car, really, 14th in the points.
They've done a great job. I mean, first of all, the Mahindra, they've worked hard. Mahindra have worked hard on this powertrain. I don't think it's any. We're not saying anything that's new, in the fact that it is the least competitive for lots of reasons over the duration of a race in particular. But it has this year had some really good qualifying pace and one lap pace, and they've also extrapolated that out to be much better in the races. And it's a bit of a different package, different prospects really for the way that they've learnt about it and how to get the best out of it, and it's paid dividends. Muller has 26 points, which 36. No, he's not. He's got 36 points. 36. He's got 36 points.
You look at the people he's ahead of: Buemi, Fenestraz. Okay,
he's ahead of Buemi.
I mean, Degrassi.
That's extraordinary.
Formula E royalty. He's got 2 points.
Well, Lucas Di Grassi, in a field of 22, is 24th in the points table. He's not going to be happy about that, is he?
I'll let you ask him about that.
Yeah. I might not approach that as an opener. I mean, I just realised that Nico Muller has got more points than Sebastian Buemi. Nico Muller in a Mahindra has more points than Sebastian Buemi in a Jaguar, which is stark.
It's unbelievable. I mean, no, he's doing a cracking job, and he seems to race really strongly. He's always well beyond where I would expect him to be in the mix, and you wouldn't put him past getting a decent set of points in London. He could finish above both McLaren drivers and Nato potentially.
Potentially, yeah. I think Muller has been one of the big surprises of the season. And actually, I teased my colleague Alice Holloway about her prediction when we did our predictions, saying that Muller and apt to be, really surprises this season. And another slice of humble pie I've got to munch on.
Bang on there.
Yep.
Oh, and also, thanks, Alice. We got some really nice feedback from when she appeared on the show. So she will be back.
Okay, all right, okay, good. That's good. And I met our superfan Lauren as well at Portland. She was very nice, and so another mention to Lauren, one of our fans who was at Portland. So good to meet her. I think Muller is a man in demand in this championship at the moment from a driver market point of view, and it's not hard to see why. Done a great job. I think the chances of him staying at apt now are diminishing by the race because of what he's achieving and the interest from other teams.
I mean, if the teams up front aren't looking at him, they really aren't paying attention, and we know that's not the case, right?
Yeah. I think he's going to have multiple offers and possibilities for next season. Did a great job again in Portland. A fifth and then a sixth. great. And we should mention Edo Mortara as well, because he got 4th on Saturday, and both he and Nick de Vries probably should have got points on the Sunday, but got involved in all kinds of mayhem in the midfield pack. But again, we're strong, and I think Mahindra, are going to retain their drivers for next season, have some continuity, work on the Gen 3 Evo package. I think the bigger picture and the bigger question for them is what they might be doing in Gen 4, which is imminent. Fred Bertrand was late coming to Portland.
Have they confirmed that yet?
No, they haven't. Fred Bertrand was late coming. He'd had meetings with Mahindra executives, and I think there's... from what I understand, there is work to do, let's say, on committing to another rule set for Mahindra. But
I mean, that's hardly surprising, right, given the form of the last couple of seasons. But
that's certainly going to be a factor, yeah.
If they can keep this up and have another strong weekend in London, you never know, that might be enough. We were going to talk about the racing, but quite frankly, I don't think I've got anything else left to say. I mean, we accept that this is the way it is. I'm not sure... I was saying to you as I was watching the Sunday race, I'm not sure I really actually enjoy that, but it sort of is what it is. It's not every race, but really,
it's this whole debate, isn't it? About, do you want something that, as I said to a senior team member, often resembles a bank holiday down at Great Yarmouth, Banger Racing Central with pits of cars scattered everywhere. And it's one thing to have that, and it's all dramatic and it's good TV and so forth. But does that fit in with major manufacturers and prestige OEMs going racing? I'm not sure it does. I mean, there are things that have been addressed, like the front wings should be much better next season with the Gen 3 Evo. But there was a lot of big stuff on the track. I mean, Scott Elkins did the right thing, obviously bringing the safety car out to clear a lot of it. But Jean-Eric Verne told me he got clattered on the head by a bit of carbon, which isn't cool.
This isn't supposed to be how we treat safety in 2024, right? Having bits of car flying around on the track.
No, but it's inevitable. You can't manufacture you can't manufacture that type of racing and expect anything else. Yeah. Ironically, the Saturday race was reasonably clean, and it can be pretty enthralling. But
I thought they were all very well behaved and were giving each other a little bit of racing room, as one might call it, even though sometimes they were 3 or 4 abreast. So,
it's this whole debate, isn't it? I mean, we've had it before, so we won't have it again. But ultimately, does Formula E want to be like traditional run-of-the-mill series and have a structure and a narrative, or does it want these bedlam races that actually, for potentially new fans coming into the sport, and they're flicking on the TV and they're seeing this crazy pack racing and this multiple contact and incident, and it draws them in? So as purists, for us to sit here and maybe say we don't like it is one thing. And look, I'm with you. I think it's too much sometimes, and it just doesn't look good. But there are a lot of people out there who will look at this as something different, and if it pulls in new fans, then great. But it's absolutely clear that every race can't be like this, because for one thing, there won't be enough spare parts to go around. I mean, they're on fresh air at the minute already. I think they'll be, they'll be patching up Wattle and Daub front wings at London just to see them through the season. So I think it is ultimately going to be a mix. I think this is the maximum that you can have, sort of 3 or 4 races a year like this, and then have your traditional London, Tokyo, Monaco races, which have got more structure and more about hierarchy. But we'll see. I think they'll review it at the end of the season. The FIA and the teams as well will sort of get together and get an understanding of where the sporting structure goes for next year, and actually the whole debate, which appears now to have rumbled on for the last decade, it feels, about if we have attack charging pit stops, which are coming back.
I don't want to
practice.
talk about that, Sam. It's so dull. I
they're coming back. I tell you what,
let's talk about it in London.
You're going to come to London. I'm going to force you to see one of these things and the infrastructure, right. And I'll get one of the bulbous brain boffins to go over the intricacies of it and see if it.
I'll bring a pair of those Homer Simpson glasses where it looks like I'm awake even though my eyes are shut.
Oh, yeah. So they're
and on that
practicing
note-
again with those in London.
Yeah. Thank you for making it this far, listener. We really do appreciate it. I think we're going to wrap up there. I'll see you in London. We'll have a good old gossip and wander around and see everyone. Always good to go there for the last time, I guess.
No, there's going to be one next season. This is the penultimate one. So the last one will be 2025. Really looking forward to London. It's going to be mega. I think the big question is if Da Costa keeps this up and wins, are one of us going to have to fish him out the Thames afterwards because he likes a dip, doesn't he?
Honestly, I, even if things have changed by then, I wouldn't go in the Thames right now, given what's been happening for the last 18 months. I'd advise him heavily against doing that.
Yeah, he'll be going straight to doping control after that, and he won't be coming home for a long time if he does. Yeah.
Right, and on that note, thank you, Sam. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Don't forget to go to the-race.com for all the pre-London information and check out our other podcasts. I think Sam and I'll be making a Bring Back V10's return soon. I think that's due to start at the end of this month, so that might be around the time of the London podcast. We might be on 2 shows at once. We'll be like Tom Petty when he was in Heartbreakers and the Wheelbridge. That's one for the young generation there. Goodbye.
The Athletic.
Finishing a podcast with Tom Petty, you don't get better than that.